Have you ever noticed how history seems to repeat itself? For China, this idea of a historical cycle is practically its lifeblood. The old saying goes, the empire, long divided, must unite. Long united, must divide. It's a pattern of rising and falling dynasties that has defined Chinese history for millennia. From the ancient Xia and Shang to the unifying Qin, dynasties would rise with strong leaders, flourish, then rot from within, and finally collapse, making way for the next. Today, we're rediving into one of the most famous and dramatic collapses in all of history, the fall of the mighty Han Dynasty and the birth of the legendary Three Kingdoms. The Han Dynasty was a true giant, lasting over 400 years. Think of it as China's Roman Empire, a golden age of culture, technology, and power. But like all good things, it had to end. And the seeds of its destruction were sown right at its heart, in what we can call the imperial court culture. See, the Han court had a recurring problem: child emperors. When a young boy sat on the dragon throne, he couldn't rule on his own. This created a power vacuum, and two groups were always ready to fill it: the emperor's relatives, especially powerful uncles, or the court eunuchs. Now, eunuchs were men who had been castrated to serve the imperial family, making them, in theory, unable to build their own dynasties. But in practice, they became a powerful political faction. They controlled access to the emperor, managed the palace's day-to-day affairs, and amassed immense wealth and influence. Over time, a group known as the Ten Attendants became notoriously corrupt. They manipulated the emperor, sold government positions to the highest bidder, and squeezed every last coin from the common people through crushing taxes. By the year 184, the situation was dire. Decades of corruption, combined with a series of devastating famines and floods, had pushed the peasantry to the breaking point. A charismatic faith healer named Zheng Ju tapped into this widespread desperation. He preached a message of salvation and rebellion, promising a new era of great peace. His followers, who wore yellow scarves or turbans on their heads, rose up in a massive, coordinated revolt known as the Yellow Turban Rebellion. The entire country was thrown into chaos. The Han court, weakened by internal strife, was totally unprepared. Its armies were ineffective. Desperate, the court made a fateful decision: granted regional governors and local officials the authority to raise their own private armies to fight the rebels. This was a classic deal with the devil. On one hand, it worked. A new generation of ambitious and ruthless warlords emerged. Men like the brilliant Cao Cao, the ambitious Sun Jian, and the virtuous Liu Bei. They successfully crushed the Yellow Turban Rebellion. But on the other hand, the Han court had effectively given away its power. These warlords now commanded their own loyal troops and controlled their own territories. The central government in the capital was a government in name only. The genie was out of the bottle, and it wasn't going back in. The real power now lay with the men who had the biggest armies. China was a tinderbox, and all it needed was a spark. That spark came in the form of a warlord named Dong Zhuo. After the Yellow Turbans were suppressed, the court fell into yet another power struggle, this time between the eunuchs and a group of generals. Dong Zhuo saw his chance. He marched his formidable western army into the capital, Luoyang, supposedly to protect the emperor. In reality, he seized control of the entire government. He was a tyrant in every sense of the word. He deposed the reigning emperor and installed a child puppet, Emperor Xian, on the throne. Dong Zhuo ruled with an iron fist, executing anyone who opposed him and looting the city's treasures. His reign of terror united the other warlords against him, but not in the way you might think. They formed a coalition to challenge him, but their alliance was shaky and full of infighting. Dong Zhuo was too powerful to defeat on the battlefield. His end came from within his own circle. His adopted son, the legendary warrior Liu Bu, was persuaded to assassinate him. With Dong Zhuo gone, you'd think things would get better, right? Wrong. His death didn't restore the Han, shattered the last illusion of central authority. The coalition of warlords instantly fractured, and each one turned on the others. The country plunged into a massive, chaotic, free-for-all civil war. It was a brutal period where alliances were made and broken in a day, and might made right. Out of this chaos, one figure began to rise above the rest: Cao Cao. He was a strategic genius, a cunning politician, and utterly ruthless. While other warlords were busy fighting for scraps of land, Cao Cao played the long game. He rescued the puppet Emperor Xian from other warlords and established a new capital in his own territory. This was a masterstroke. By controlling the emperor, Cao Cao could issue imperial edicts in the emperor's name, giving his actions a veneer of legitimacy. He wasn't just a rebel warlord, he was the prime minister of the Han, working to restore order, or so he claimed. In reality, he was systematically consolidating his power, conquering rival warlords one by one, and unifying the entire northern plain of China under his command. By the early 200s, it looked like Cao Cao was unstoppable. He had the largest army, the most territory, and the emperor in his pocket. His next logical step was to march south, crush the remaining warlords, and unify all of China under his rule. But the south had its own powerful players. In the southeast, the Sun family, led by Sun Quan, had built a stable and prosperous state. And then there was Liu Bei, a distant relative of the Han imperial family. He was a man with a grand reputation for virtue and benevolence, but at this point had very little territory to his name. His greatest asset was his sworn brothers, the fearsome Guan Yu and Zhang Fei, and his brilliant strategist Zhuge Liang. Facing the overwhelming threat of Cao Cao's invasion, the two southern warlords, Liu Bei and Sun Quan, knew they couldn't survive alone. They formed an unlikely alliance. The showdown came in the year 208 at a place called the Red Cliffs. Along the mighty Yangtze River, Cao Cao's massive northern army and fleet were confident of an easy victory. But they were northerners, unfamiliar with the southern climate and naval warfare. The Allied forces, though heavily outnumbered, used their knowledge of the river and a clever strategy involving fireships. They set Cao Cao's entire fleet ablaze. The Battle of Red Cliffs was a catastrophic defeat for Cao Cao. He barely escaped with his life, and his dream of unifying China was shattered. This single battle is one of the most important turning points in Chinese history. It ensured that no single power could dominate the entire country and set the stage for the next phase. With Cao Cao pushed back to the north, the political landscape of China finally stabilized, but it wasn't unified. Instead, it was split into three rival states. In the north, Cao Cao's son, Cao Pai, would eventually force the last Han emperor to abdicate and declare himself the emperor of the new Wei dynasty. In the southwest, Liu Bei, claiming to be the legitimate successor to the Han, established the kingdom of Shuhan. And in the southeast, Sun Quan declared himself the emperor of the Wu kingdom. The Three Kingdoms period had officially begun. For the next 60 years, these three kingdoms, Wei, Shu, and Wu, be locked in a complex and grueling struggle for supremacy. It was an era of epic battles, brilliant strategies, and legendary heroes that would be immortalized in literature and art for centuries to come. But ultimately, the constant warfare drained all three kingdoms. They suffered from the same old problems that had brought down the Han: internal power struggles, corruption, and the sheer cost of maintaining their massive armies. The cycle was beginning anew. The end came not from Shu or Wu, but from within the most powerful state, Wei. A prominent family, the Sima clan, had been quietly building their power for generations, serving as generals and officials for the Wei court. In a move that mirrored Cao Cao's own rise, Sima Yi and his sons gradually usurped the Wei emperor's power. Eventually, Sima Yan, Sima Yi's grandson, forced the last Wei emperor to abdicate and established his own Jin dynasty. With the resources of the north at his command, he first conquered the weakened Shu kingdom. And then finally, in the year 280, he conquered Wu, bringing the Three Kingdoms period to a close. China was unified once again, but the peace was fragile. The Jin dynasty itself would soon collapse into civil war and division. The great cycle of unity and division, of rise and fall, would continue to turn for centuries. The story of the Han's fall and the rise of the Three Kingdoms is more than just a sequence of events. It's a timeless epic about ambition, loyalty, betrayal, and the inescapable patterns of history. It shows how even the mightiest empires can crumble from within, and how from the ashes of chaos, new orders and new legends are born. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into Chinese history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more stories from the past. See you next time.